For those that don't know, I am a really big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. I love getting together with my friends. I love playing the game, sitting, rolling some dice, seeing what sort of shenanigans we can get up to. It's a lot of fun. Maybe a lot of you guys can relate. At least I hope so. And today, I want to talk about my favorite class to roleplay as in D&D, the Druid. And I think that if I'm going to talk about the Druid, the first thing I got to do is talk to you guys about what kind of player am I? So the first thing to say is that when it comes to D&D, I have never been a warrior kind of player. I'm not a fighter, I'm not a barbarian, berserker, none of that crap. I don't like the idea of getting a big weapon and going and, killing enemies. Because in real life, I've already got the biggest weapon of all. Isn't that right, ladies? So I don't need to overcompensate for anything. Sorry to all you fighters and shit out there, but it's true. The second thing that I really enjoy when I play D&D is I like learning more about the world. I like sitting down and, talking to the DM and learning more about the history of locations, their significance, why did this lead to that? Like really fleshing out the story to really bring out some greater immersion. I also really like the idea of playing as a class or as a person who has little actions that they do, but it leads to really great, significant outcomes. Think Frodo, little old Frodo with the ring, blowing up, the ring at Mount Doom. Little person, big result. I like stuff like that. Not too loud, not too flashy. And finally, the last thing, the final kind of thing that I like to do in D&D is I really enjoy being a background influencer. I don't like the idea of being the guy that's right up in your face saying, oh, this is what you should do, and blah, 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 like a general, in a war. I like being the guy who just makes a suggestion, have you ever considered option A instead of option B? You ever, considered that? And have you ever maybe reasoned to this option C? I like being that background manipulator, kind of whatever sort of character. And this has led me to playing the Druid. In regards to not being a warrior type player, Druids, they're not really big damage dealers. I mean, maybe later on they can really dish out some cool DPS, you can summon like spirits of nature and whatnot, and that's pretty cool, whatever. But fundamentally, they're really not fighters. They rely more on crowd control. They rely more on dialogue. They're healers. They're the guy that's in the back of your party. They're not gonna be like up in the face of, some guy unless you're playing with Shillelagh. That's a spell that makes your weapon like really strong. But fuck Shillelagh, man. Druidcraft all the way. In regards to learning more about the world, Druids can learn so much about the game world and the environment and what's going on through things like talking to animals and plants. Now you can play as some sort of rogue, as a scout, as an assassin, and you can go out and scout the woods, or you can go into town and you can roll your persuasions and intimidations and all that crap to learn more about what's going on with the greater politics in the world and where's this camp at and where's this army located and what's going on in this area. But remember always that a bird will always see farther than the greatest scout. And the Druid has the ability to speak to the bird, to learn what it has to say. And most of the time, those birds are gonna say, feed me, I'm hungry, I want to bang, and I wanna shit on a windshield. But when they're not saying that, they're telling you about the Dark Lord who's risen in the mountains of Ashkavan, who is summoning all evil to him and, pulling fucking nightshades and shit out of the Shadow Realm. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh, man. And the bird will tell you all about that. And that's badass. Druids also have some fantastic little spells that they can throw at people that can just really change the flow of how everything is happening. I mentioned Druidcraft earlier. All Druidcraft does, just a harmless little nature effect. You touch a flower and it blooms. Maybe you create a smell in the air like, is that lilac and gooseberries that I smell? Oh, Yennefer, bring me that big fat ass. That's what Druidcraft does, guys. So you can use it to manipulate people, for example. Like, let's say you're in a situation and you just create a smell of fire or like smoke. The guy you're talking to, he goes, is that smoke? And you're like, oh, wait, excuse me, let me get my staff. It's like, oh yes, seems the building's on fire. You should probably go check it out. He's like, oh shit, my building. And then he runs away. You never know. Or maybe there's a door. If you want to get more druidy, there's a door and it's sealed by ancient nature magics, given to the world by Sylvanas or something, and only a druid can open it. And then you just reach out and touch the door, making a single flower bloom on a little vine that, kind of covers the door, and then suddenly, the magic of the druid spreads, and suddenly tons of flowers are blooming. It's a chain reaction and the door opens. How cool is that? Or if you're a real asshole, just use control person. Like, fuck all that shit. Just be like, yo, you're my best friend now. Tell me everything. And then the person will be like, yeah, you're my best friend. I will tell you everything about me. And they have no control. It's absolutely glorious. You can be you can be like a subtle, manipulative spellcaster, or you can be a giant fucking asshole. Whatever you want to be, the druid's got it. And lastly, in regards to just influencing people, I think the druid does that well, because keep in mind that, it depends what kind of druid you play, but druids typically are like priests of nature. They speak for the trees, they speak for balance, they can speak for Sylvanas, their god, they can speak for anything to do with a bear shitting in the woods. The druids, that's their thing, man. Like maybe there's an orc tribe or something, and they're like, oh yes, we're gonna attack the other people. And you're like, you do not wish to cross those mountains, for the mountains, they speak, and they do not like travelers, and if you take your army through those mountains, the winds will howl, and, the frost will bite at your bones, and you will freeze to death like many who have come before you, for the mountain is unforgiving. Now, most people would listen to that and go, shut up. But some people, they'll be like, I ain't gonna cross that mountain. That sounds scary. And that's the point. In the campaign that I'm currently doing, I am playing a fungal druid named Ashvin. Now, I didn't really want to play as a life druid, someone that like grows shit and whatnot, but the other side of nature. Nature isn't all flowers blooming and, trees, reaching for the sunshine. The other side of nature is death. It is decay, and there is a place for that in society. So my character is a druid of the fungus, and let's say somebody dies. He's the one that puts his hand on them and just rapidly decays them down and, gives their nutrients back to the world. Oh, there's a giant tree in the way. Maybe there's, construction that needs to be done in the town. He puts his hands on the trees, mushrooms, bloom and the tree decays away. He understands the balance that there is a time to live and there is a time to die, and that's who his character is. In conclusion, I love playing the druid, because there's so many different ways to play a druid. You could play them as a defender of nature. You could play them as a upholder of, death and whatnot, and fungal spores and yada, yada, yada. You could be a historian. You could be a pacifist. You could be like a manipulative priest of the wild or some shit, whispering in the chieftain's ear of your druidic society or whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can play them, from the magical to the physical to the practical to the impractical. And I absolutely love it. Guys, I don't know if there's anybody out there that are fans of druids just like me, but if so, I want to see you in the comment section. But if you're not a fan of playing a druid, that's fine. If you're not a fan of them, that's cool. Say down below what's your favorite class to roleplay as. Is it a sorcerer? You want to play a wizard? You want to play a fucking barbarian, a mounted warrior or some shit? You let us know and you tell us why. And maybe down the road, if you guys want, I can make more videos like this talking about the other classes and why they're not as cool as the druid. But either way, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys with my next Dungeons and Dragons video, if you guys want to see more. Thanks.